Hello and welcome to another InfoPod video from Combat Fusion Martial Arts. Today we're going to be looking at the technique Raining Claw. Now, Raining Claw is a short base technique, meaning there's not a lot to the actual base part of the technique itself. However, if you're going on to the extension and studying that as part of your training, please be aware that some of the moves that we place into the extension may be not what you're being taught by your instructor, so just use them as a what if or a variation in itself. A Raining Claw is a step through uppercut. We'll be showing this as a base movement. No complex stuff when we're learning it first. We try to keep it as simple as possible without too many complex movements. This makes it easier for the novice who is learning the technique at that particular part in their training program. We would throw in more complex movements and different types of uppercut attacks later on in their training, but for now we just stick to the base movement. Let's get into Raining Claw and look at it from our normal 3 perspectives without a partner, then break it down on a move for move basis. So, Raining Claw. The base attack in this technique is performed as a step-through uppercut punch to the stomach. The base defense is to take a retreating step as you deliver a downward horizontal forearm block perpendicular to your opponent's forearm, whilst having your rear arm in a checking position. When delivering this block, ensure you maintain the principle of blocking below the elbow. As with techniques like 5 swords, when blocking on the inside of the arm, we block below the elbow. This is to avoid receiving an involuntary strike. As the attack in Raining Claw is no more than a vertical version of the 5 swords attack, the block placement should remain constant. After the initial block, convert your rear checking arm to an overhead claw to your opponent's face, shuffling forward if the need arises. This overhead claw to your opponent's face is how this technique receives its name. Like a cat using its natural weaponry, the claw rains down on its target, causing a blinding effect, hence the name Raining Claw. With the overhead claw momentarily blinding our opponent, we utilize this effect to hide the next strike's path of travel to its target. This is the principle of object obscurity. The claw obscures our opponent's vision, as our blocking arm now tracks along this arm, delivering an inverted back knuckle just as the claw is removed from our opponent's face. Obviously, this is being demonstrated here for instructive clarity at a much slower pace than we would if executing at combat speed. A reaction you may encounter as a result of this overhead claw to your opponent's face is his attempt to protect his face with his hands. It may be possible to utilize this reaction to assist the delivery of the inverted back knuckle. We will now proceed on to the extension to Raining Claw. If you do not require this at your stage of training, you may wish to bypass the next section of this video. After the inverted back knuckle has impacted its target, thrusting your opponent's head backwards, retract your lead hand to take over the checking of his attacking arm as you simultaneously deliver a heel palm to your opponent's chin, which then ricochets on to deliver a 4-finger thrust to his eyes. Immediately retract your 4-finger thrust, clawing your opponent's face in the process, to end at a checking position by your lead arm's bicep, as your lead arm simultaneously delivers a palm-up half fist to his throat. During this movement, avoid closing off the throat as a target when you execute the returning claw. However, should this happen, Simply alter the half fist to another back knuckle, thereby protecting your hand from potential injury. Now, have your rear foot step up the circle 10 minutes from its 6 o'clock position as you deliver an outward downward diagonal hammer fist to your opponent's solar plexus with your lead hand. As you simultaneously deliver an outward heel palm hand sword to the underside of his jaw hinge or neck with your rear hand. As your opponent reacts, again have your rear foot move up the circle another 10 minutes as you simultaneously snake your lead arm under and behind your opponent's arm, placing it into an expanded hammerlock with your rear hand checking at the elbow. At the end of this maneuver, drop down into a wide kneel stance, marrying your body weight with this action, whilst applying forward and downward pressure to your opponent's shoulder, causing his head to go forward and to the floor. This should cause your opponent's head to impact the ground or for him to post with his free hand in an attempt to prevent his head hitting the floor. Immediately begin to fold your opponent's arm into a full hammerlock position as you step back around to place your knee against yet above his trapezoid, finishing this maneuver by stepping your other foot back into a neutral bow. If your opponent is not at a suitable height, use your knee to impact to the rear of his shoulder, driving his height down to a suitable level that will be below the height of your lead knee. When executing this foot maneuver, have your checking hand grip at your opponent's wrist and your other hand slide out of the lock position to grip at his elbow. On settling back into the neutral bow, lever back on your opponent's arm, utilizing your knee as the fulcrum and your opponent's body mass as the load. Please remember you have a duty of care to your training partner when practicing this move, as it can easily cause a dislocation of the shoulder. As your opponent reacts to the dislocation, step back with your leading leg into a close kneel stance as you continue to pull your opponent forward, causing him to face plant into the floor. Again, take extra care when practicing this part of the technique. With your opponent now face down on the floor, perform 2 environmental sandwiching strikes. First, by dropping your rear knee onto his head, then rise up and stomp again onto his head with your lead leg. From here, front crossover and cover out. So now we're going to take a deeper look into the relationship between Reigning Claw and 5 swords. In the previous video, I alluded to the fact that Reigning Claw is nothing more than 5 swords on a different plane. So we're going to take a look at some of the other similarities between the 2 techniques and how the principles and lessons from one technique can help to compound the moves in another technique. So let's take a look at the relationship between Reigning Claw and 5 swords. So now we're going to look deeper into 5 swords and Reigning Claw. In the video we've already seen that Reigning Claw is no more than a vertical attack version of 5 swords, but we want to progress on a little bit further now and look at some of the other aspects that are similar between the 2 techniques. So we already know that in Reigning Claw we step back and do a downward horizontal forearm block, which is followed by an overhead claw to the face. So now with 5 swords we teach a stepping forward version with a single inward block to the lower part of the forearm, below the elbow, with our rear hand checking. Now I know some people teach a 5 sword version which comes in with 2 hands, either attacking the shoulder and checking at the wrist or going straight to the hand sword. All these versions are perfectly adequate and perfectly valid, but what we teach is a stepping forward version of 5 swords with a single block, which is no more really than learning how to step forward on delayed sword. It's just taking up to a different level. So as we know, on the technique Reigning Claw, we've got the downward forearm block followed by the overhead claw. Now if we take that lesson and place it into 5 swords, we find that after the stepping forward with the inward block or checking hand, this is the hand that will become the Reigning Claw. Now this could be activated by our opponent's momentum forward. If he's really launching this fist at us, his head is likely to be following on. Now if we're slower than we think or he comes at us faster than we expect, It may be more practical for us after 5 swords, rather than going straight to the hand sword, to insert a heel palm before we then go to the hand sword. So if we use the lesson from Reigning Claw, which is a step back downward forearm block followed by an overhead claw, and apply that to 5 swords, we find that that overhead claw suddenly becomes an insert before we go back to the base technique and deliver an outward hand sword. Now then, following on from the either overhead claw in Reigning Claw or the inserted heel palm claw in 5 swords, the next movement in Reigning Claw would be the inverted back knuckle. If we apply that to 5 swords, the back knuckle is replaced by an outward hand sword. Now this is a change in weapon, but not a change in essence of the defense. So we can see that with Reigning Claw, we still have that 3-beat movement of 1, 2, 3. And if we apply the insert to 5 swords, we also have a 3-beat movement of 1, 2, 3. The reason we use the hand sword in 5 swords and the back knuckle in Reigning Claw is purely for our body positioning. In 5 swords here, after the block, the outward hand sword flows nicely with the mechanics of my body to its target. If I try doing a back knuckle from there, I'm really feeling a lot of tension in my upper shoulder. So from here, the block, the hand sword flows nicely. If I try doing a back knuckle from there, I'm creating tension in my shoulder, which is restricting my movement. Similar vein with Reigning Claw, if I step back and block claw, if I try doing a hand sword from here, the hand sword would have to travel this way. So it would have to travel up, okay, to get to its target. And this again is putting tension all down the back of my arm, which is restricting my movement. So my body structure allows this movement to be more efficient in Reigning Claw, whereas in 5 swords, the hand sword is far more efficient. Now then, as we move into the extension to Reigning Claw, we find that as we step back and do a downward forearm block, there's our claw, there's our back knuckle. The next movement is a heel palm to the chin, followed by a finger thrust to the eyes. If we apply this now to 5 swords, we find that the technique is already following this model. So with 5 swords, we have our block, we could insert if we want to, then hand sword, but in 5 swords the next movement is a heel palm to the face also. So in Reigning Claw we have block, claw, back knuckle, heel palm, eye strike. And in 5 swords we have block, insert, hand sword, heel palm. And again, if we wish to add another insert, we could also do a finger thrust to the eyes in 5 swords. So this eye strike is also contained in one of our forms, long form 2, and if you know the opening movement in long form 2, we have a block, hand sword, heel palm, eye strike before the vertical thrust. So the next movement in Reigning Claw after the heel palm eye strike is to claw back across the face. Now we know to claw back towards us, not down, because that will close the chin, as we've seen in the video. But after we've done the claw, back knuckle, heel palm and finger thrust, we come to a half fist to our opponent's throat, with our checking hand coming back to our bicep. Now if we compare that to 5 swords, we have a step forward, inward block, insert if we wish, hand sword, heel palm, finger thrust to the eyes, and now as the hand comes back to the bicep, we deliver an uppercut rather than a half fist to throat. So we've just shaken our weapon from 5 swords here to Reigning Claw here. Okay, so this has gone to the stomach, this has gone to the throat. Basically the same movement. Now the only slight timing issue there is with the step. In 5 swords, after we've done this uppercut, or virtually after we've done this uppercut, as our hand comes back to deliver a hand sword to the neck, we step with our back foot from 6 o'clock up about 10 minutes up the circle to take us out of the range of our opponent coming forward. Because as Mr. Parker always said, we don't want to chop trees down on top of us. So his natural reaction from an uppercut is going to be a forward bend, so we want to get out of the way. But as we do this uppercut, we deliver a hand sword to our opponent's throat as we do a downward block to our opponent's arm to keep it clear before we progress on through with the technique. Now making that comparison to Reigning Claw, we step back and do a downward forearm block. There's our overhead claw, our back knuckle, our heel palm eye thrust, rake back, leopard's paw strike to the throat. Now we move now on our next 2 strikes. So we step with our back foot up 10 minutes up the circle as we deliver our downward, outward, circling hammer fist to our opponent's solar plexus to start this forward movement. But simultaneously to doing this hammer fist to the solar plexus, we deliver an outward hand sword to the jaw hinge. Okay, now you've seen that in the video, but if you look at the comparison to 5 swords, As we hit here, we move and hand sword. Raining claw, we hammer fist, hand sword and step. So we're making the same movement, there's just a slight timing issue between the strikes and the step, but in essence it's the same movement. Now then, I said in 5 swords, we give a slight downward block here to clear our opponent's free hand. Now as you know, with 5 swords, when we've done this, we step. This hand travels on above our head to deliver a hand sword to the back of our opponent's neck. But in raining claw, as we step back, block claw, back knuckle, heel palm, eye strike, leopard's paw strike to the throat, hammer fist, hand sword and step. This hand still continues this motion, but it continues up behind our opponent's arm rather than clearing it and coming above it. So we're now underneath our opponent's arm, and the hand sword could be activated with the arm still locked across our body, but we convert it from a hand sword to a check to the shoulder to bring our partner down into that low position for the continuation of the extension. This is where the similarity really diverts between the two techniques. But as you can see, between the beginning and that part of the extension, they are basically the same technique, just one is a vertical attack and one is a horizontal attack. So, I hope that gives you something else to think about with your techniques. Well, thank you again for joining us here on another InfoPod video from Combat Fusion Martial Art. I hope the information contained in this video will help you improve your Kenpo training. If you're watching from a different martial art, I hope the information within these videos give you an insight to the training regime of Kenpo itself. And also, I hope they give you some ideas on how you may be able to improve your own personal martial arts. But please remember, these videos are purely training information videos. They are in no way representative of Kenpo done in a combat environment. Once again, thank you for joining us here at Combat Fusion Martial Arts. I hope to see you on the next video.